William Peter Blatty, the Academy Award-winning screenwriter of The Exorcist, has died at 89 years of age. I'm Erica Ishii, and this is Screen Junkies News. In the late 1940s, the Catholic Church performed a series of exorcisms on an anonymous young man in a small town in Maryland. On Friday, August 20th, 1949, the Washington Post ran an article about these rituals, which former high school valedictorian and Georgetown student William Peter Blatty would read. Many years later, this article inspired him to write a book that would go on to spend 57 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, for 17 of which it would hold the top spot and would inspire a movie that is still terrifying audiences to this day, The Exorcist. Sadly, we learned this morning, courtesy of director William Friedkin's Twitter, that Mr. Blatty passed away yesterday at the age of 89. Joining me to talk about Mr. Blatty's illustrious film career is Screen Junkies news writer Charlie Feldman. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, Spider walked over here in remembrance.
With your mouth full of split pea soup.
As is tradition.
Ugh.
Sad day for horror fans.
Yeah, so this was a very significant film at the time when it came out. Could you remind us of the importance?
So not only was it the #2 film at the box office that year, only second to The Sting, it was nominated the first horror film ever for Best Picture that year, and won for Blatty himself, who wrote the screenplay and the book it was based off of, one adapted screenplay that year. So it was a huge deal, critically and commercially.
That's very unusual. We know that traditionally Hollywood does not consider a lot of genre films for Best Picture.
Paranormal Activity just out of the running every year. It's very strange. No, it's not. Sorry to talk back on that. But this film was remarkable. It really changed people's lives. People were supposedly vomiting in the aisles, passing out. They were really legitimately afraid of this movie.
Right, and they said that attendance at Catholic masses spiked during this year.
I believe people needed Jesus after this movie. And the phenomenal thing about it was its writing, because it was so lived in by a Catholic, and you could tell. It was someone who was legitimately afraid of the devil and the devil within us all. And what I learned before coming on here is that Linda Blair, who everyone forgets that the child who is possed's name is Reagan. They think of Linda Blair. It was such an iconic role that Linda Blair's own name is used way more than the character's name. It is one of those films that stays with you, and it stays with her and her career, and it stays with us who watch it.
Right. But Mr. Blatty had an illustrious career before that as well.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize he had a lot of films before this actually happened. He wrote some for Blake Edwards, who was he was married to Julie Andrews, and he did a lot of films like Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is pretty iconic. But the ones that Blatty was on, Shot in the Dark, What Did You Do in the War, Daddy, Gun, and Darling Lily. It's all before the Exorcist book, not even just the film, before the book.
Right.
So he had, and he was sort of a journeyman. Before he was a writer for Hollywood, he was a vacuum cleaner salesman. And what I loved learning about before we filmed this was that he was in the Air Force for psychological warfare. And if you look at what happens in the scenes between Max von Sydow and Karras, the priest Karras, and Reagan, it is psychological warfare. She, as possessed by Pazuzu, is breaking those people down with every. You're so scared. I know you're so scared of horror
films. It just
films.
makes so much sense.
He came with a wealth of knowledge, and he put that in his book, and he put that on screen, and that's what good writers do, and it is a loss to writing. And he was writing up until 2010. He just deeply religiously convicted person was still writing about religion and its effects up till 2010.
Right. That is so true about writing, about bringing what you know and your strengths to your writing. I myself am so terribly squeamish when it comes to horror films. I think maybe this could be the occasion on which I do watch The Exorcist finally.
Give it its due. Watch with a loved one so they can hold you, because the script is terrifying. The whole thing is so scary and vulgar. But in the best possible way. I saw it as a kid, and I thought, because I was a jerk, that this was funny. But in watching it as an adult, you realize how scary the situation would be if I, was a parent looking at a kid going through all that.
So
That'd be scary.
He continued writing
Yes.
up until the 2000s, you were saying. So what are some of the other films that he did
So
since then?
he did The Ninth Configuration, which has a cult success now, but at the time was not as well regarded. But yeah, he was a steady worker of, a steady writer in Hollywood from the 60s on.
Oh, well, his work will be missed. Thank you so much for joining us. Did The Exorcist also deeply affect you? Should I watch it? Please let us know in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe and check out our other videos over here.